definitely gonna get something to drink with this, man. Smoke. You gotta be fine. Even if you're not gonna be fine, isn't it better to just insist thinking you're gonna be fine until it's not fine? And then when it's not fine, then you can just fucking handle it then. There's no sense in ruin right now, right? You gotta be fine. Even if you're not gonna be fine.
Sneaker just invented an endless supply of electricity. It all started when he was buttering his toast. The bread fell down, and he noticed something. He butters his toast again and drops it from a very short height, but still, it lands on the buttered side. Now, the genius sees his cat and drops it a few times from different heights. He notices that it always lands on its feet. He then uses his 1000 IQ and tapes the buttered side of the bread to the cat's back. He then drops it, but instead of falling on the floor, it starts spinning rapidly. This happens because the cat is trying to land on its feet and the bread on its buttered side. This has now turned into a never-ending supply of electricity. He now lights up his town with his new invention because Sneaker just invented an endless...
Isn't it better?
Gonna be life like Jordan or us. Young gang stars with the kill switch. Jojo, pose, pose, pose. Jojo, pose, pose, pose. Jojo, pose, pose, pose. Gonna be life like Jordan or us. Young gang stars with the kill switch. Jojo, pose, pose, pose. Jojo, pose, pose, pose. Jojo, pose, pose, pose. Gonna be life like Jordan or us. Young gang stars with the kill switch. Jojo.
We might we might do some painting today. I ain't even really sure, man. It's late and I'm tired and I'm hot. I've been really trying to let the damn studio cool off. I ain't gonna lie. Been in 15 minutes, still hot in this bitch. I got the window up though. Maybe if I let the window down and keep the cold air in, hot air out. See how this shit work out for me. Yeah, right now it ain't doing so good. It ain't doing too good. It's too damn hot. And I'm too damn hot. Yo, what's good, bro? It's hot as a bitch in here. I ain't lying. I got ice. I got ice in the cup trying to cool me down. Woo! Ice in the cup trying to cool me down. That's an adult beverage though, so I can't drink it too fast. I'm thirsty and I'm hot, but I can't drink the beverage too fast, cause then I might pass out. Hello, how's it going? Oh, it's so hot in the studio today. My God, it is the hottest. And I've had the AC on for like 20 minutes. It ain't doing nothing. I mean, it ain't making no difference at all in here right now. Good, Googie and Moogie. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know what to do. It's so hot. I just been really just sitting here, just trying to let it cool off without moving around too much. Whew, boy. I love days like this though, because I'll be wishing for this shit in the wintertime. Motherfucker be wishing for this in the wintertime. Only thing about our seasons up here is we only got like 2 whole seasons. We get autumn and winter, definitely. So we get both of those. But we only get like a piece of summer and we barely get any springtime, period. Like there don't hardly be no springtime around this shit, bro. It go from snow to 80 degrees. Mm. Well,
That's what.
U.S. regulators approve the sale of chicken.
yeah, my shit just as good as that.
He's back, family. So the past couple of weeks, I've been saying that the mythology creates the psychology. Well, check out this video and see what I mean.
Would you believe it? The bus-loaded nuns get killed in the car.
Consider this your sign. Just under one sign. Because right now at Vistaprint, all signs are 20% off. Strike by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night. All day. Yes, the thing is about that photo. They found out that's kind of bullshit. No, I took pictures. I know, I took it too. But this is AI. So when someone did on when someone did online, whoever did it, they took a very blurry photo of screen across the room, and then they zoomed in on this, and the camera showed detail craters.
Talking about like this, you know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a real picture.
Yeah.
So that you just used the 100x zoom.
Yeah.
You didn't use the moon photo thing.
Yeah, no,
There's a moon
this
shot.
standing outside.
There's a moonshot aspect to that. That's a little.
I gotta check that. I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, if you zoom in on it,
Yeah,
if you zoom in on the moon. Okay, I don't think that's real. See, that's what I'm talking about. I think that's AI.
The AI recreates it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I know. I was showing off to my family.
Yeah, listen.
I have the 22, I think the S22 Ultra.
Yeah.
I had the older one,
Okay.
and I would take photos of the moon. Like, look, iPhone's bullshit. It can't do this, but it turned out it looks like I got fooled.
Oh man.
Yeah, because you can't hide stuff like that on the internet, technology stuff.
Right,
Those
right.
guys are too good.
They know everything.
They know everything.
Yeah.
But we were just talking about the difference. I'm just really thinking about switching to Android. I'm just tired of being trapped.
Yeah.
And it's just like this resistance. Everybody's like, don't do that. I'm like, oh my God, it's like a mind virus. Like everybody's like culturally locked into having a blue bubble.
But when you tell them you're going to switch from Apple, then Agent Smith shows up from the Matrix and inhabits their body, and they try to tell you to stop doing it. Don't do it. Like try to you know, convince you not to leave.
It's like if you were a Catholic and you said, I'm going to become a Baptist.
Right.
People are going, don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's not that much different.
I know. It's crazy.
It's weird.
Yeah.
People get weird with everything. They get
Yeah.
weird with their beliefs. They get weird with what they subscribe, what group they attach themselves to.
So true.
It's so strange. And I think this is a good way to segue into like what you do, and because these subjects, so many of these subjects, so many people have like an instantaneous reaction.
Yeah.
And that instantaneous reaction is, oh, hogwash.
Yeah.
If this was true, I would already know about it. It would be taught in universities. It would all be. But then you find out, like, no one is really just kind of trying to piece stuff together, specifically talking about these ancient tablets, which are, to me, some of the most interesting things about ancient history, particularly what came out of ancient Sumer.
Yeah.
Ancient Sumer, when you look at their tablets and, like, what are they saying? And why would they dedicate so much time to talking about this stuff?
Exactly.
Why do they have pictures of giant, enormous people-looking things with like a humanoid with a tail sitting on their lap? Like, what is this? Just fiction? Like, why would they detail this? And how do they have a representation of the solar system with the correct amount of planets and relatively the correct order and size. You know, it's not exact, but
Right.
it's an artistic version of the real thing.
Yeah.
And how the hell 6,000, 5,000 years ago do they know that?
Yeah.
And what explanations do we have? Like, what's the conventional explanations when people tried to dismiss what they knew in ancient Sumer?
Well, the conventional explanation is always going to the term mythology. They
Right.
throw mythology around, left and right to cover up the fact that they have no clue or idea. So they turn it into mythology so they can kind of say it's all fantasy and fairy tales, and this is how they express themselves or how they understood the universe. It's all mythology, it's all fake, but in reality, it's not all fake. These people left behind such detailed records and information. It's a time capsule of information on stone tablets for us today to be able to decipher, break down, and understand, and that's what we're here to do now.
When you look at these ancient languages like cuneiform, can you read that? Do you know how to read it?
Yeah, a small amount of it, yeah. Studying
How
it
does
from
it work?
books that I have bought right off of Amazon.
Oh.
Yeah, so basically you take a stick. It looks like a stick with a kind of a curved end, right? Almost sharpened. It's called a stylus. And then
It's like a stylus for an iPad.
Exactly, very similar, right? And then you take a piece of wet clay, and right before it's too wet or too dry, right in the middle stage, you then start wedging, making these incredible lines into the clay, and then from that you get this cuneiform text. So this text literally, some of the letters actually relate to complete ideas. But it's incredible work, and it takes a long time to do. And then you have to let this thing dry, and then it becomes stone. So, if people were supposed to be trying to worry about how they're going to get their next meal, shelter for the night, and all these kind of things, who has time to sit down and write these incredible works of art like the Epic of Gilgamesh, for example?
Yeah.
I think they really were writing down, and also they were transcribing information that was given to them by these quote-unquote gods with the lowercase g.
So when you're reading things like the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Epic of Gilgamesh, for people who don't know, is one of the oldest versions of a lot of the stories that you hear in the Bible. Very similar
Yes.
to them. There always seems to be a great flood. There's a few heroes. There's angry gods. There's a bunch of stuff going on. And Zecharia Sitchin's work was like the most controversial on the Sumerian text, right?
Yes.
Because there's a whole website called sitchiniswrong.com where people go crazy about him.
Yeah.
But when he starts talking about it, when you read some of the things that they wrote, and when you see like some of the images that they created, the images that look like the double helix from DNA, and there's a bunch of that now we represent the caduceus, which represents pharmacies and drugs. Like that's the old version of an image of the double helix of DNA, or at least it looks super similar to that.
Oh, it definitely is, because it's referenced even in the Egyptian Book of the Dead and other ancient texts. So there's no coincidences here. Now, Zecharia Sitchin, I don't particularly go by his work. Not because it's controversial. I believe he was one of the greatest researchers of all time. And the reason why is because he laid out so much information for us to begin to scratch our head and ask questions. But what I figured out was that by going through the UCLA CDLI online cuneiform digital library, say that fast 10 times, I was able to take stone tablets and decipher them myself. So anyone can go online to the UCLA CDLI online cuneiform digital library and read these stone tablets for themselves. You don't need Zecharia Sitchin, you don't need anyone else. And as I began to break these tablets down,
Do they have them transcribed, or are you reading the actual tablet?
they transcribe them. They actually transcribe them into English for you.
Is there controversy as far as, like, are there different versions of the transcription? Like, do some people think it's interpreted differently? Is, like, some debate about that?
Only where it comes to where some of the text is missing. There could be pieces chipped off of tablets. You see that corner missing from that tablet right there in the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Just look how wild is that?
Yeah.
Just how wild is that exists?
Yeah.
And that it's so hard for people to put in their brain 5,000 years of time,
Yeah.
and that there's these people that have this very bizarre language.
Mhm.
Like, when you look at that language, we don't even know what it sounds like, right?
Right. No, and the language popped up out of nowhere. You're talking about a civilization that appeared out of nothing.
It looks like computer code,
It does.
doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Just imagine, like, a human being deciding that they were going to write down in these very bizarre, and they all agreed that all these things mean a certain thing. So they had to somehow or another have a Rosetta Stone or something where they're documenting it so that people can learn it and teach it. And then we're looking at it 5,000 years later.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
It is. And what's incredible is this text was translated in the 1800s, long before Zecharia Sitchin was born. So there are some, some rumors that, he was the only one that could decipher these tablets. Well, no. George Smith, who worked as an Assyriologist and wrote many books and deciphered these Sumerian tablets in the 1800s. So we're talking about texts that have been deciphered for a few hundred years, nothing that was just deciphered recently.
So what are the first decipherings? Like, what year was the first deciphering?
It was in 1800. I think around 1850. George Smith. He actually worked at the I believe it was Cambridge.
And what was his take? Like, when he's reading all these wacky stories and all the Anunnaki stuff, what's his take on it?
He is literally subscribing to this information the way almost that you and I see it today. These people saw something, experienced something, interacted with something, and he cataloged it, and it inspired him to write a complete translation of the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. And he talks about the fact that that information was copied right from those tablets and put into the Old Testament of the Bible. And so, not exactly like what's going to go from here to the Bible, but it went to other ancient papyruses and scriptures and so forth. And then later on, when it was discovered in caves, people took those and then said, okay, we got to put this into a book. And then it became the Bible much later, around 100 AD. But he subscribed to the theory that these people interacted with beings in some way, shape, or form, and that also this information is so incredible that it became part of the biblical text.
Did you ever read the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yes. Yeah.
So the Dead Sea Scrolls, what was it found in? What year was that? It was in Qumran, right? They found
it. It's Qumran, but I think again this was also, I believe, in the late 1800s or early 1900s.
Is when they found it. So these things are written on animal skins, and this is this is a very old version of those exact same stories, or some of similar stories.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weirdness in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Like, I haven't read it, but is there any references to anything that's similar, like Anunnaki type characters, the Nephilim, or anything like that in the Dead Sea Scrolls?
They show up everywhere in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the Enuma Elish, and the Epic of Atrahasis. Of course, even in the Bible, they're known as the Anak, A-N-A-K. We were grasshoppers in their eyesight, it says in the biblical text. So no matter where you go in any culture, you're going to discover that these beings, in some way, shape, or form, engaged mankind, brought knowledge, teaching, building techniques, and just so much more wisdom and information, esoteric wisdom, alchemy. All these things came from these people.
So the craziest version of this story is that they genetically engineered us out of lower primates and put us here to mine gold.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then established different types of civilizations and taught us how to build things, taught us all these different things. And enough time has passed that we've kind of forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
Enough time has passed. That's the wackiest version of it,
right? Right. That's the bare bones minimum.
Yeah, the wackiest version is that they made us, which is, we've talked about this a couple of times, but how bizarre it is that human beings have this incredible fascination for gold.
Mm-hmm.
We're fascinated with gold. Yeah. This fascination with gold is really weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why back when it was basically useless? You couldn't make a knife out of it. You couldn't, it didn't make sense that this would be so valuable. Just because it's rare, you're barely alive. We're going back to full-on hunter and gatherer, our ancestors with spears and stone chipped, and then after that, gold emerges,
mm-hmm.
and it stays.
Yeah.
It stays forever. Now, when you read Zecharia Sitchin's book, he talks about this in the 1970s. His description of it was that they needed to suspend gold particles in the atmosphere because their atmosphere is being destroyed.
Right.
Then you move to somewhere around the 2000s when climate scientists start proposing this idea of suspending reflective particles in the atmosphere.
Right.
And then when you realize the unique properties of gold, how unusual it is in terms of a building material, you can coat things.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why things are coated in gold, silver plated, or gold plated rather, you can take a tiny piece of gold and cover an enormous area with it. It's a strange metal, really weird.
Mm-hmm.
And what, the supposed story is, it's very common on Earth, very rare on Nibiru.
Right. Yeah, that's the story. And now when I started looking into this gold thing myself, and here's what I came up with. So when you start analyzing the text, you discover that there was an encampment in a place called South Africa at Adam's Calendar. Okay. Now at Adam's Calendar, there's actually the very first gold mines discovered. They're dating them back to about 200,000 years ago. And that's incredible because there's a building there that looks like a worn down structure. Now in the tablets, it talks about the fact that the Ijiji, who were the working class Anunnaki beings who were cleaning out the Euphrates and Tigris River so they can create irrigation and create a bustling civilization. Also, they were doing the actual construction themselves. No people needed, just them working. They were like the construction workers, and Anu and Enki and Enlil, these leader gods, were like the four men, the master architects and so forth, right? The boss. So these people were working, but they weren't supposed to be enslaved. They were volunteers. They got tired of doing the work according to them for about 250,000 years of labor on Earth, and also according to them on Mars. This is in the text. They call it Lamu. And so they decided to go to war against Enki and Enlil and Anu because their demands had not been met. So they went to meet them in the Epic of Atrahasis. They go to Adam's Calendar. They go to that same structure that was discovered where that gold mine is located. I was like, holy crap, there is some link here to gold. Specifically, exactly, I don't know. But I know if you're an advanced civilization, you need gold. And the people that you have working for you probably think, it's to adorn or to adorn yourself or in recognition of the gods. So they'll wear it and they'll utilize it, but not for technology. But what's crazy is they go to war, they get ready to go to battle, and then Enki says, I have an idea that will stop this war. There's an existing being on this planet. Existing, not something that doesn't exist, existing. We can add our essence to it with a slain god. So they're talking about taking the DNA or genetics from one of themselves and mixing it with the DNA of the hominid that was here. It's not specified whether it was, an ape man or anything. They don't specify in the tablets, but to create a worker being. And they began to do this genetic modification, probably disconnecting some of our DNA, making genetic modification to us to get us to take orders from them. They inserted something called a worship gene, which was just discovered recently, that human beings have a gene inside of them that can be turned on and turned off. It can be turned off in a laboratory setting. It can also be turned off with a magnetic field around your head. And when it's off, you don't want to worship anything outside of yourself. You look inside, and when it's on, you look to get something from the outside. So this is incredible. And so they made us worship
a gene inside of us to make us worship them. How genius.
That's incredible, because then you're not a slave anymore. You're doing this for the honor of the gods.
And for people who think all this talk is really crazy, I want to put into perspective that we talked about this the other day, that during which war was it where the Soviet Union was experimenting? It was scientists in the Soviet Union, correct? They're experimenting with creating a chimpanzee human being hybrid that they would probably send to war.
Yeah.
So instead of having regular people, we would make this monster, this freak, ape man, and send him to war and have him crush the enemies.
Yeah.
So how crazy is that? They knew how strong chimps are. I got an idea. Let's turn a chimp human, and that way, if he dies, who gives a fuck?
Right.
We made him. Get him to go to work for us.
Yeah.
And now, if you're a supremely enlightened being, wouldn't you think of human beings with all of our folly and all of our chaos and all of our war and bullshit and the internet and disinformation and misinformation, wouldn't you think of us kind of the same way we would think about that chimp hybrid thing? If I was I was the president of Russia, I wouldn't want my cousins to go to war.
No.
Or I want to send this freak that I made in a lab.
Yeah, and what's interesting was, too, I'm glad you said made in a lab. They had talked briefly in that text about fashioning people. In other words, almost
How did
like
they say it?
They said the word fashioning. Fashioning of being.
What was can you remember the actual quote?
I would have to look it up, the actual quote.
But they describe it as fashion.
Fashion, because they said even the lamb hadn't been fashioned yet, so they had fashioned lambs. So they fashioned, it's also in the Epic of Gilgamesh, they fashioned the friend that Gilgamesh went on the journey with. He wasn't born from a woman's womb. They created him. They created him an artificial being to go on this journey in the Epic of Gilgamesh. So they use that phrase several times in the tablets. But they said, no, wait. It was almost like that's not a good idea, because in some ways it seems as if they had known that the idea of making these too many artificially created people wouldn't be a good idea. Now, they didn't go deeper than that, but you can see where we are today with AI and everything else, and these robots that are coming. Maybe they knew something about that, but they decided to take a biological being and genetically modify and program that to do the work, and that's exactly what they did.
Well, if they really knew what we would be capable of, and that we would be illogical, overpopulation would be a gigantic issue. And in many parts, I mean, it's not really that big of an issue here, except for in cities, but in many parts of the world, it's the whole country. The whole country is New York City, which is just fucking bonkers, and you gotta wonder, that's actually not true. It's like, it's not even that bad, even in China. China has a lot of open space, but when you're in those cities, they are massive, and they are filled with people. And that is probably what you'd imagine a higher being would do if it was like us, like kind of illogical and kind of a little bit reckless, and has a little bit too much technology for the average person that didn't develop the technology, but all of a sudden you got some 85 IQ dope who has access to all the things that all these geniuses have created. I mean, you could figure, we talked to Michio Kaku, he built a nuclear reactor in his house when he was a kid.
I heard about that. It was crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
That's so crazy. But there's a lot of different stuff that you can do and have access to technology that is beyond anything you would ever be able to invent with your own mind. But because we share things across the board, you would imagine that if you were an enlightened being from another planet that's a million years more advanced than us, you'd go, I see where this one's going. Like you have that cousin who's an alcoholic and then he wins the lottery, like, oh shit, Derek just won the lottery. This is gonna be crazy. Derek's got $200 million. It's gonna be fucking insane.
It's crazy. And they knew they were going outside their own guidelines and their own laws, their parameters, because they made a statement in the text. They said the creator of all was going to punish them, or they would have to answer to the creator of all for what they did here. So and that lets you know they weren't really gods. They knew themselves that they weren't the creator of the universe, but that they masqueraded as gods on this planet.
Just like we did when different versions of human civilization would find primitive tribes, like the cargo
cults.
The cargo cult that you talked about in your documentary. That is so fascinating that during World War II, planes landed on these remote places, and these people built mock planes to show like what the thing was that came to visit them that they thought were like gods.
Wow.
Do you think that if the Anunnaki are real, and if Nibiru really exists, and there's another planet with highly intelligent beings that are far more advanced than us, if that's the case, do you think there's more advanced and more advanced and more, just like we are to chimpanzees, they are to us, and then another race is to them, and then it just keeps going on and on forever until you're God?
Absolutely. I believe there's levels to the game, just like there's levels in terms of how we live on this planet. We have the first world, second world, third world, just here on Earth. Now magnify that one as a fractal, as a universe as a whole. You have civilizations that are 1 million, 2 million, maybe even 1 billion years ahead. And every universe every civilization progressing within the universe at a specific rate. So you can have beings that have already maybe even shed their corporeal bodies and only exist as beings of energetic light. And then you have everything all the way back down towards us. In the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, he actually says that he has achieved the ability to incarnate at will on and in the plane he desires. He claims to be able to incarnate whenever he wants and even into other dimensions, which is wild.
That's next level.
Yeah, that's next level.
But it does make sense that if we're capable of doing what we're doing, we were talking about your phone, the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra with zooms and all this different shit. That's magic to someone just 200 years ago. And if it keeps going, and you keep like playing this out as far as possible, it kind of makes sense there would be levels to the kind of intelligent life that exists in the universe beyond our comprehension. If you talked to Terrence Howard, do you know his theory about how planets are created? That it's just things ejecting from the sun over billions and billions of years, and that there's a Goldilocks zone where you can create life, and that's where the people are. And then as
Hey. Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Yeah, I can hear you. I'm in the studio, working on some art. Pretty good. I had the kids after school, and we took them outside. I had to do my kids' program after school. So we just went outside and did like just some outside games and stuff. But it got so hot. It was like, yeah, same thing here, bro. It was so hot that where we was standing, like in the field outside, there weren't no trees or no shade or nothing around. So we kind of like packed it up a little early because I mean everybody was out there sweating their balls off. I was like, yo, let's get up out this heat. Um, yeah, I ended the program a little bit early, like 30 minutes early. Kids still wanted to, some of the kids still wanted to play, but I'm like, man, yeah, I can't take it. I'm sorry. I was like, my whole shirt was starting to get soaked with sweat, you know. But then Thursday, I think, oh shit, I think we're getting rain on Thursday, so we'll be inside on Thursday, and then that'll be my last day for the after-school program for a couple of weeks because it's almost time for summer break for them. I think their last day of school is like the 14th, so I'll give them a couple of days without us being around, so they can just have like some normal summertime stuff, and then we'll start back up like later in the month and do our summer program. Our summer program is only going to be 1 day a week, and it'll be in the middle of the day too. We're going to do it at like 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, so that way um, I won't have to be staying super late after work no more. Huh? I think we're getting rain on Thursday, down here at least. Yeah, that's why I wanted to get outside today since it was going to be a nice day. I know that they don't. I mean, when it is nice like this, they don't be wanting to sit in the classroom all day. But I know on Thursday we ain't gonna have no choice if it's raining while we out there. So that's why I just made sure we got outside today. Mhm. What he be up to lately? All right, yeah, do that. All right, bye.
Goldilocks zone gets broken, you have to be super technologically proficient
Right.
in order to control your environment to the extent that you no longer require the sun in order to keep you alive. That kind of makes sense if Nibiru is out there past Pluto.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
It makes sense that they...
Because I just talked to him a couple hours ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, so we were talking about wind conjugations and everything.
Fucked me up for like 3 days. I left this podcast for 3 days. I was like, yeah, damn. First of all, how the fuck is he so smart? Like, how would you ever imagine that a dude who's an actor on a television show or a movie is that smart?
Right,
like freaky smart.
Right.
But his theory about the creation of planets, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
We watch stuff fly off the sun all the time. And that this matter over time would coalesce and become a planet.
Yeah, it creates an accretion disk, and everything in space creates accretion disks. So once that
What is that word? Accretion disk?
Accretion, yeah, accretion disk. So once you have a certain amount of mass in space, it instantaneously, on its own, wants to create this circular, like the shape of our Milky Way galaxy, wants to start circling and swerving around itself. And then as it does that, it begins to create friction. As that friction increases, the matter begins to collapse in towards each other, all right, based on its own energy, and then it then forms a ball. And that then builds and attracts more mass until it builds into a moon or a planet or whatever. Yeah.
What do you do when you encounter flat Earth people?
Oh man, I just try to be quiet. I just tell them, look, it's not my thing. You know, I remember Flat Earth Society offered me money years and years ago, and I was like, no, I don't believe the Earth is flat. I'm not getting involved with this. And they really attacked me hard, death threats and everything else.
They get very upset.
Yeah.
I do not understand. I just think it's people committing to an idea.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
Well, it's a religion now. They turned it into a religion. Anytime that people can attack you so brutally over that. I mean, I'm on live talking about quantum physics, and they're in the chat. The Earth is flat. The Earth is. I mean, so that's like, I mean, one guy.
Fascinated by it because
it's interesting.
Yeah, because it's the ultimate conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
The ultimate conspiracy theory is that we are all on a set, and that the Earth is flat. It's a disc. There's a wall. The government's aware of it. They won't let you pass a certain distance. Yeah, there's ice walls.
Yeah.
And that space is just lights in the sky.
Right. That's it. And the sun is a bulb, and all this kind of stuff.
It's attached to a version of Christianity, which is very interesting.
It is. It's tied into Christianity. The 6,000-year-old theme. The Earth is only 6,000 years old. The reason why people think the Earth is 6,000 years old is because most of the tablets are 6,000 years old, and the Bible was written from the information that came from tablets. So that's as far back as anybody's quote-unquote knowledge seems to extend. That's where the 6,000-year-old theory comes from. But they've taken that thing and turned it into a religion. I remember one guy DM'd me, and he was going off and telling me he was going to shoot me in the head and all this stuff. And I said, let me ask you a question. If there's no atmosphere, then what are you breathing right now? He goes, what do you mean? Well, I'm breathing oxygen. I said, well, that's a gas. Gas doesn't exist. I said, well, then you should be dead then, because you're breathing a gas. I said, what else are you inhaling when you breathe? He goes, oxygen. I said, well, no, you're breathing in, helium, krypton,
mostly nitrogen.
Yeah, nitrogen. I said, you're breathing in all these other gases. Oxygen is only around 21% of that, otherwise you'd be dead. So he couldn't tell. I said, did you graduate from high school? He said, no. I said, I stopped talking. That's when I realized, don't waste your energy on these people.
Well, there's a lot of dudes, unfortunately, who just get on YouTube and they listen to very charismatic people talk that don't know what they're talking about, which I do all the time. But they do it in a way where they pretend they know something is true that's not true.
Yeah.
And people get sucked into it.
I know.
And I just don't understand why you would think that Earth is the only one out of all these things that we've observed that's flat.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. And I think, this is respectfully to all these people that believe that, I think it's a giant waste of time.
It is.
I think concentrating on the shape of the Earth, even if it was flat, who fucking cares?
It means nothing.
Look at what's going on out there. It would be kind of crazy if it was flat. That would kind of like bolster the idea that we're the shit.
Right.
And that we're just so much more powerful and advanced and special than everything else in the universe, because we're the only ones that exist on a flat plane.
Right.
But the whole thing is just so insane. Just what we know about the physical universe itself, and about atoms, and just what we know about all the matter that exists in our lives is insane.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, obviously, they haven't tapped into, even forget quantum. Standard physics. They don't comprehend it. And so because of that, they're lost. I mean, satellites don't exist, obviously, to them. So
But that's a kooky one.
I remember Hurricane
Satellites
Maria.
don't exist. That's a kooky one.
It's-
Like, bro, you can watch them.
I mean, it's crazy. Hurricane Maria comes and destroys the Caribbean, and I unfortunately had some loved ones that were involved in that. And I posted a picture of the hurricane because I was raising money for hurricane supplies, and they were commenting and attacking. That's a fake image. It doesn't exist. I'm like,
Let me ask you this: how much of that is bullshit? Like, how much of that is government, either entities from other foreign governments, where they jump into these subjects to make people seem really stupid?
Yeah.
And when people say something really stupid, if they have one of the things they like to do is put a foreign flag, like an American flag rather, in their little
their
profile.
They always have that,
And they're just saying that dumb as shit.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I don't know if this is a real person. I think it's not. I think it's one of those things that's designed to muddy up any discourse about anything.
Yeah, it's a psyop. I'm telling you, I told people a long time ago this whole flat earth thing was a CIA psyop.
I think it was
drop it in there.
If it wasn't a
see what
CIA
happens.
psyop, it was someone from 4chan who just wanted to be silly.
Yeah.
And went so hard with explanations that a lot of gullible people without science degrees like me, they went along with it. And it's just one of those things where it's just, man, what a giant waste of time.
It is. There's so much energy, and there's so much more we can learn, like these ancient texts. And people say, why are you always focused on the ancient past? Well, because the past is prologue. If we don't understand what happened back then, we're doomed to continue to repeat these cycles of time that we've been in for quite some time, for eons.
Yeah, I mean, it's just direct evidence that civilizations don't last when they go kooky.
Yes.
That things go sideways and there's natural disasters and wars that reshape landscapes. Like, look, it's all there, and it's happening right now.
Yep.
And if we're not aware of it, it'll happen to us. And then we'll be a footnote of history. We'll be one of those things. There was this amazing country called America. They got crazy. They created all this art and culture, and they did amazing things. They went fucking sideways.
Yeah.
They sold out to money. They got involved in wars, and then the next thing you know, the world is operating essentially like communist China. The whole world.
Yeah.
But that's possible too, kids.
Yeah.
All right, you gotta fight for this. 'Cause
Yeah.
whatever this thing is that we have, this is like super fucking unique. But if you don't want to look at the past, if you're not fascinated by ancient structures, if you're not fascinated by what kind of technology and knowledge that they have 4,500 plus years ago to make the pyramids,
Right.
Who are these people?
Exactly.
What were they doing?
Yeah.
How did they do that? And what was that thing? Was that a power plant?
Right.
I mean, I know you know that
Oh, yeah.
theory. That is
Absolutely.
a
Yeah.
crazy theory that it sounds completely wackadoo.
Mhm.
But then when you have it laid out to you, Christopher, what's his last name?
Done. Christopher Dunn. I
Christopher
just had
Dunn.
him on my podcast a few weeks ago.
I just had him a couple weeks ago too.
Yeah.
I just had a brain fart.
Yeah.
His depiction of the mechanisms that would be involved in turning this giant structure into some sort of a power plant, you hear about it, you go, wait a minute,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And him and I have very similar theories on how the power generation occurred. And I believe that the Nile, when it used to run up close to the pyramids, and the water would run underneath the pyramid, and that would create something called physiostatic electricity. As it ran underneath that magnetized crystal granite, those ions would pour up into the chamber, move up the grand gallery where there used to be resonating rods, but you can see the slots where the rods used to be. They're removed now, but the slots are still there. Then it would be pushed into the king's chamber where it would be amplified and some type of fusion would take place, then forced up through the apex, and then the crystal granite obelisk around the region would capture that ambient wireless electricity. And then if you had something called a jet, which looks like a Tesla coil, you can capture that energy and you can transfer it into a device for gold electroplating, for any other electrical tools you need, like some of the tools they had to have used to create some of these incredible works of art. We can see the tool marks, so we know they had the tools. But they had wireless electricity way back then.
Recordings just got better. Hey, it's Dana from StreamYard. I'm so excited to announce that local recordings are now available on StreamYard. Have you ever done a recording where your guests just had terrible internet issues? They were blurry, they were freezing, you could almost hardly hear them. Well, with local recordings from StreamYard, you'll be able to download a perfect quality video from your guests after the show. This means that no matter what you or your guest's internet connection is like, you'll be able to download the perfect high quality recording every single time. You can also download both a separate audio and a separate video file for the hosts and guests. Now with StreamYard, you can have freeze-free, studio-quality recordings on any connection, anywhere in the world. You can choose to download them, stream them later, or edit and repurpose them. It's your turn to test out local recordings today, now available on StreamYard.
No living being should ever eat processed food for every single meal of their life. Good, real food is simple. It looks like food. It smells like food. It's what dogs are supposed to be eating. We really don't want people to think of feeding food like ours as spoiling their dogs.
It's amazing to me how many people write in about their dogs changing for the better. The farmer's dog is just our way to help people take care of them.
If that's true, that's insane. Because you would think there would be some kind of physical evidence of a device, like something left over, some sort of a, ancient chainsaw,
Right.
like something.
Yeah, they did a great job cleaning up. I mean, they poured sand over Giza to bury another couple hundred pyramids there at Giza.
Do you think they poured sand? Do you think that's just natural erosion over time? Because when Giza, when the pyramids existed, it was a very different place, right? Like, if you go back before the pyramids, like 9,000 years ago, it was a lush rainforest, right?
Yeah.
And then over time, it became sand. And the same with the entire Sahara Desert, which is really crazy. We were talking about the other day, they find whale bones in the Sahara Desert.
Yeah. I'm going to the Valley of the Whales in a few weeks in Egypt, actually. It's incredible that there's whale bones out there also. So we're going out there to the Valley of the Whales.
Whale bones.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
But so the point being that this place has changed radically, like absolutely radically over time. So who knows do you know why those things were covered up? Is it possible that it was just sand over time?
Well, if you look at the tablets again, they talk about this war, right? And this war that occurred, there's a lot of wars obviously, but this one particular war, it seems like the same one that damaged the area or the region of the Giza Plateau, also Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley up there by Pakistan. And the reason why it's interesting is if you look at the war in the text and then go to those areas, it looks now almost you can begin to see, oh, wait a minute, it looks like war. Mohenjo-Daro in this valley, the buildings turned to glass. The sand turned to glass, and the bodies are still laying in the street right now today, holding hands, never been scavenged by animals. So,
Wait a minute, where is this?
Mohenjo-Daro.
Are there photos that we can look at?
Oh, yeah, look it up. Mohenjo-Daro in this valley, dead bodies still laying in the street thousands of years later. And
they just lay there? Nobody's covered them up?
Nobody's covered them up. Yeah, when you put a Geiger counter over them, higher than background level radiation. Okay?
Really?
Yeah. And
But aren't stones higher than background level radiation?
Some stones are. Some stones are, especially like diorite and crystal granite. But these bodies, these are just bones. How come they're higher than background level
I can't wait to
radiation?
see this.
Yeah.
Why haven't I ever heard of this?
Mohenjo-Daro, M-O-H-E-N. There you go.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is evidence of a nuclear war or nuclear
Go
type.
back to the other, that one there. That one's insane.
Yeah. There's bodies that are sitting on the edge of steps next to their own buildings that they lived in. The building is turned to glass. That's 3,000 plus degree temperature weapons fire.
So there's a bunch of people that seem to die all at once, just scattered around?
Yeah.
And what's the conventional explanation for how these people died?
They have no idea. They have zero idea. The only thing that
was just a couple, Jamie. Go to the other, just the Mohenjo-Daro mythical massacre.
Yeah.
So that they think it's a massacre? Is there any? Their bodies just laying there.
Laying there. And that building, those stones are vitrified, which means 3,000 plus degree temperature.
Oh shit!
What kind of, what could have caused that level of temperature, an energetic release?
Well, it could have been a low atmosphere asteroid.
It could have been.
I mean, just like
that's possible.
Tunguska.
Yeah, it could have been but their bones would have been splattered apart and broken into pieces.
Good call. Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, because they don't seem to be broken apart.
No, they're not broken apart.
Right.
That impact would have shattered the bones and spread them out over a great
Right,
distance.
but without impact, even if you just look at the one that burst in the atmosphere in Tunguska, it just flattened trees.
Flattened everything.
All the trees. I think it's some insane, like 1 million acres or something crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible. So
how big was the
been
Tunguska explosion? That one's, yeah, so those bodies would be toast.
They'd be
Because the
toast.
trees were
Yeah.
ripped apart.
The buildings would have been flattened.
The legs would have flown off.
Right.
There's no way they would just be laying there like that.
Exactly.
That's interesting. And they don't seem to be like chopped up.
No.
Did they have any evidence of stab wounds or anything on them?
They don't have any evidence of any injury, of any kind of attack, or any cutting, or like swords or anything.
They just all got cooked.
Right. And then in the tablets it says that the evil wind moved over the land after they released these weapons. And then Enki goes to his father. Enki goes to his father Anu and says, "Hey, can you stop the evil wind?" Because he had fallen in love with some people, and down there. And he's like, "There's nothing I can do." He said, "Get in your sky ship and forebode." That means get the hell out of here. And he said the people's hair was falling out, their eyes were bleeding, their nose were bleeding, their fingernails were curling off. That sounds like radiation sickness.
So do you think it's radiation sickness that did this to all these people, or was it an impact that did this to all these people?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. But they're not blown apart.
Right, they're not blown apart. It seems like whatever struck, or whatever energetic weapon it was, it could have been might not have been a weapon. Whatever it was, it seems like that shock wave reached them at some point, and whatever was in that wave
just killed everybody.
That's what it did. Yeah.
And they just don't know what it is. How does a conventional archaeologist describe it? Do they just say it's a massacre?
They just call it a mythical massacre, and they stay away from it. When you look in the other texts, the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, you find out about these wars also. They're recorded. They have weapons called the Brahma Astra and the Brahmahanda weapon, and these weapons, what they describe them as doing, duplicate what you saw there.
How do they describe them?
They describe them as weapons that once released can't be revolted or can't be turned back, and that they will obliterate any area, any city. And they say that one of the weapons can destroy any man on 3 worlds. It's crazy stuff. This is where Oppenheimer got his famous quote when he obviously tested the nuke, right? "Now I have become death, destroyer of worlds." He got that from the Mahabharata.
Yeah. What a great quote to say after you detonate the first nuclear bomb.
Oh man, crazy.
What a great quote.
Yeah.
So the idea is that there were beings that were having wars on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Were they? Do you believe they were having wars with people that were revolting, or were they having wars with other beings?
They were fighting with each other. And evidence of these wars can be found in the book of Deuteronomy in the modern day Bible. These gods, I do mean God with an S, because everywhere in the Bible where it says God singular, it's actually a mistranslation. The actual, if you backwards look up the translation in Arabic and then down to Aramaic and everything else, you find out it's gods plural. They were fighting each other over resources and people and control of the planet. And so that's why in the book of Deuteronomy, God tells people, go to this city, and it's like a far city where they don't even know that these people exist. They go over there to kill them. He says, kill the women, kill the children, and bring the spoils of war back to me. And you see these wars in the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, the Sumerian tablets. And these wars are just nonstop, the Indian Vedas. And it's always about attacking another city. And they even talk about Trojan horse methods to get behind the gates, and then to utilize that to attack and kill and bring back these spoils, which is pretty crazy stuff. It's like they were attacking each other. They had gone awry. They had gone rogue out here on this planet, and then began to fight over people and populations and resources.
And we would hope that we would get past that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no evidence that we have so far. So, why would we think that as AI gets implemented and technology escalates and all we're going to be able to do in the future in terms of being able to go visit other planets and duke it out on other planets?
Right.
Like, there was a whole story today about China just landed on the far side of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So they landed a probe over there.
Yeah, they did.
This is, if there was the China-America war on the moon, what if America claims a spot and China lands and plants a flag there, and they're like, hey, fuck you, that's ours?
Now that's going to happen.
Especially if there's something on the moon they can mine that's very valuable.
Oh, this stuff up there. I researched the Clementine mission years ago. NASA and the United States military sent a military, at that time, it was a top secret mission called Clementine. It was a low lunar orbiting satellite to go to the dark side of the moon. And when I saw the name Clementine, I knew right away, this thing ain't coming back. And as I began to dig deeper into the declassified documents, of course, it never came back. Oh my darling Clementine, you were lost and gone forever.
Wow.
And I was right. And sure enough, it hit something on the dark side of the moon, which is really just the backside. It's not really dark there, but it hit something, but it sent back about 20 gigs of data. And these images are available to the general public. They've been declassified and there are strange anomalies on those images. This is pre-Photoshop, pre-everything. Things that shouldn't be there that look like broken structures and junk and things that just seem to be laying around. So I think it was a reconnaissance mission to gather intel and data, which is probably why China's gone to that far side of the moon as well, because they're probably going to, it's a race to see who can capture ancient technology and then reverse engineer it and then weaponize it.
Well, that's the most fun theory ever. The most fun theory ever is that there's bases on the moon, the dark side of the moon, that aliens have abandoned. Jamie, are there any photos of these anomalies? That's the most fun.
I can provide you some with links to the sources too.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. But Jamie will probably find something. Cool. So what do these structures look like to you when you look at them?
Just dome structures there.
A dome?
Just domes. As a matter of fact, one of the astronauts, I think it was Neil Armstrong, if you get the declassified from the Freedom of Information Act documents that are the black box audio and the black box redacted text statement from NASA, which is available to the general public, Neil says, look at those convex structures down there. I bet the people in there never get out. And he's talking about dome structures on the moon. And this is an exact statement that was made that's in the black box audio, which I can provide you to the link to that as well.
Okay, so where are these structures? Do you see any of these that you find?
You need to look for anomalies on the backside of the moon. We utilize a lot of these in our Facebook groups. On Facebook, we have these groups, anomaly hunting groups. We formed the United Family of Anomaly Hunters, and we've cataloged about 60,000 anomalies now. A lot of them are on the dark side of the moon. But type in Clementine Moon Photos Anomaly. You may be able to find some. If not, I'll send you the link to some resources where you can look them up, and you can take a look at some of these crazy objects that are there.
So is that one right there in the upper right-hand corner?
Yeah, that one's there. Some structure. Those kind of look like two pyramids onto the left of it. And then another structure which almost seems like it has geometry. And underneath that, you see the blur? That looks like obfuscation. Directly, if you go back up to that top right.
Top right?
Yeah, top right, B. Okay, you see that where his hand is? Now move to the left going down slowly. See that? Go back up again. See that? Where his hand is over right now?
Mm-hmm.
It looks like obfuscation. Sometimes you can take these images and put them into a Photoshop and take away the contrast, and all of a sudden structures pop right out. But right above that, you see those shadows of those pyramid structures?
Right above that.
Yeah, you see those pyramids? You can see this dark shadow.
I see two lines.
Okay.
I see the arrow that's pointing to that one straight line, and then I see what looks like two superimposed arrows.
Okay, do you see?
Yeah, those things.
Okay, yeah.
Those are superimposed, right?
No, those are shadows.
But look, those are the same things that are in the bottom. Aren't they just pointing at something? Aren't those pointers?
I think they may be highlighting something.
Right, I think it's a cursor mark or something. So what they're saying, I see what they're pointing to. They're pointing to that thing in the upper right-hand corner.
You see
it kind of looks like a pyramid.
Yeah, you see that? You see that right there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like a pyramid.
It's cleaned up a little bit there in C. C is more clean. But those things don't look like they belong there.
Well, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. But we have really that pyramid right there is very famous. That's a very old image. That's on the moon. There should be a link to that. There's a lot of that particular one's been around for years.